We're recording with the right mic. The tattoos are paying off. We double checked. We had to have a full court of witnesses. They all signed a piece of paper where we are sure that we're good. Freeze, however, is not looking so good. We gave him what for last time, and he's feeling it.
It's just a bum knee.
He's not even touching his knee. It was my bum knee in his chest that he had. Anyways, we completely ignored the game last time, and we're going to continue to completely ignore the game because this was another one that got lost. We're still overdubbing because we sucked.
Please, find my wife.
That's.
I think we actually commented on the fact that they're, I wouldn't call them friends, but they're
Yes,
a little bit
we did-
unlikely.
That's when we talked about
partners.
Yeah, unlikely accomplices because it's literally like we ended up having a big punch up. We beat each other up. We're both sort of hurt, and yet now we're just like, all right, we got it out of our system. Let's get back to working together.
Yeah.
I kind of like the relationship between Freeze and
Well,
Batman.
it's a understood misunderstanding. It's
bygones being bygones.
Yeah.
Because Batman recognizes that Freeze isn't always evil, which is why one of the quests is to actually help him save his wife. Because the Joker, that's one of the quests we just got. Joker kidnapped his frozen wife, and so we're going to help him get him back. And then it's also Freeze.
Are we
Yeah.
actually
Well, we're not going to do it now. I have no clue what we were talking about. I have no clue
That's
what we
what
were.
I'm saying. Are we actually going to?
Not in this video, but as part of the game.
We're just making his agony real acute.
I have no clue what we were talking about for so long that we didn't do anything. But yes, we're having to overdub this one again. Oh, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, Freeze recognizes that Batman is sort of an equal, and Batman knows that Freeze isn't always evil, so it's a fun relationship. But we're gonna try the overdub again because it just worked so wonderfully last time, didn't it? I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was bad for our first attempt. I thought we did.
Although staring at this screen,
I have no clue what. Yeah, I have no clue what we did this time.
Watch it just be like some sort of a loop that you accidentally made, and it's just.
I might have. This was us solving technical issues while the camera was running, and we didn't know it. This is going to be like an hour and a half video, and the first 20 minutes are just this. It gives us more time to talk about stuff. What's been up? I asked this last time. Has anything happened in the last 10 minutes since we recorded the last one?
You're giving away our process, man. We record on the days. You're making it worse.
We don't even. This is live streamed. We don't even record these. You're just missing them every time. Oh, okay.
We record at 4 a.m.
We actually probably could start streaming at 4 a.m. and no one would know.
Well, I don't know. It depends on your fan base, I suppose.
Well, a bunch of people in China would know.
Wow.
Well, it would be daytime there when it's 4 a.m. here. I think he's having heart palpitations. We got to give him some help. Whoa! He's going into cardiac arrest.
He's having. It's VFib.
He's going into. Get House in here. Let's talk about that open wound.
Oh dear. I don't think I can.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It's too soon.
It is a little too soon. We haven't even finished the final season. Please don't spoil it for us.
We even have a poster of him looking back at us with.
I have a poster on my wall back from season 3 when things were great. Well, okay, finally we're going to start moving. Freeze, he's stable now. We're going to just walk away. Oh, but except we're not. We're not so sure he's stable.
Who had to have been playing? If it's you...
It probably was, because I think I was the one who beat Freeze, and we just carried on straight from one to the other, so...
Yeah, but what could we have possibly been dialoguing
Clearly
about?
we had something real deep to talk about, and we don't know what it was. Well...
We're back.
Are we, though? Are we really? That implies we've ever been. Anyways.
House.
Should we talk about it? I don't even know that we should. We haven't even finished it yet.
It feels a little open.
We're in the middle of season 8.
I have more hope than he does.
Oh, I don't know why you do.
I don't know. I mean, I'm maybe giving more
credit
to the writers.
I don't know that I want to talk about it yet, because then people are going to spoil it, and I don't want to know, because we're so close to the end.
You have a poor, misanthropic view
of the internet? I have an accurate view of the internet. Excuse me. I know what the internet's like.
Well,
I don't know. Should we? let's just
gonna
say
put it out there.
I really used to love it. It was one of, I would have said, if you'd asked me 6 months ago or a year ago, I would have said, oh, it's like one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
Well, it
'Cause I
still
think it's
can
great.
be.
No, I'm not sure it can, because if it belly flops the final dive, no matter how good it was before, you just got to go like, well, it can't come out on top now because it failed at the end. If you can't stick the landing, it's like, I don't know.
I don't know. The German judge may still give you a 1.
Yeah, and then you won't come out on top. That's the point. I don't know. I also don't know that I can talk about it yet because we haven't finished it. So I don't think it's going to redeem some of the poor choices that were made in season 7. And that's what we'll say.
Suppose we'll just leave it there.
Or actually, no, because I think it was the end of season 7 and the beginning of season 8 is when it really hit a wall. The ending of season 7 went wacky, and season 8 hasn't recovered well. Because I would say
Leave us to our misery, though. We want to find out for ourselves.
Seasons 5 and season 6 were just the highlights for me. I also don't... Well, it's old now. We talk about it like it's still happening. It's still old, so I guess we can spoil it because it's been done for a while. But if you haven't watched it, you should, so don't listen to this.
We can spoil it for you, but you can't
Yeah.
spoil it for us.
Well, you could if you talked about current stuff, but not... Yeah. If you haven't watched House up until season 8, stop listening to this. I'll put a spoiler card on the screen. When he starts to go a little nuts based on the Vicodin abuse, when he starts hallucinating Amber and all that stuff, and that season, I think that's season 5, and it ends with him checking himself into a rehab facility. I thought...
That whole arc is fantastic.
It was such a brilliant writing for the character. The whole lead up to it was great.
Close to A Beautiful Mind, fantastic.
Ooh.
I thought it was really good.
Is Beautiful Mind that good that you'd make that comparison?
I love Beautiful Mind. Did you not like it?
I have not seen it enough to
Ooh,
know.
you should see it. It's good.
I've heard that it's good, but I don't know that I've not heard it enough to know that that's a high praise to compare it. But I thought that was a brilliant setup, and then I thought the arc afterwards was also great, where it's like you actually get to see him trying to get his life together, and then they just crapped all over that.
Yeah.
And it's...
Well, some people would say he crapped all over it, but I mean...
Yes, but the writers did it to him.
Yeah, I agree. But here's the thing. I didn't like what they did to the character. However, I don't think it was uncharacteristic.
I do, because I think they had enough growth for him to no longer be that same character.
Yes.
They had him return to his own self when they gave him so much growth that it's like, where did all the growth go?
Well, and I also think that...
That's what I said this morning when I looked in the mirror, too.
Wow.
I just realized that that's going to sound way worse than I meant. I meant in the sense of, like, a growth. Not... Oh, boy.
I'm just going to leave that low-hanging fruit.
No! Oh, I need to put the shovel down before I end up buried. I meant that to be a different thing. That didn't come out. No, I wanted it to. Oh, dear.
I think you're just continuing to dig.
Well, because I'm questioning if we should restart after.
No.
Is that the end of the video? Have we reached the end now? Ooh,
No,
there you go.
I think it was not...
Oh, no.
Wilson actually made the comment multiple times to him that he tends to or tries to kind of obliterate any sort of success that he has.
When things are going well, because he's suspicious that it'll fall apart, so he ends up making it fall apart.
But the thing I always loved is that Wilson would suggest that and then later come back and go, okay, I know that that's not necessarily true.
Especially because of all the growth that he had some really prominent, when he was seeing his therapist, when he was having his sort of redemption in a way. Not that he was an evil character that needed redemption, but they were giving him reasonable growth, but they still didn't change the character. Because some people made it... I think maybe some people complained that it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like House, because they thought House was the jerk all the time. And when he started to be a little bit more of a healthy person,
yeah, see,
they might have been like, oh, this isn't House. But I go, well,
I feel that my wife may be in that camp. I don't know.
Okay, I don't agree with that. because she's wrong if she is. Whoa, getting shot. Because he had... I don't know. I felt like they gave him a reasonable growth where he didn't become a saint. It's not like, oh, he's...
No, that is true. They didn't make it too...
He was still himself, but more adjusted, let's say. He became better adjusted.
Healthy.
Yes, and that was great. And then they basically went, I don't know, maybe a bunch of fans complained, and then they were like, I guess let's make him go back to the way he was.
Yeah,
but that's...
I do hope that we're not in the minority with that.
Well, but we may be, because why did they do what they did otherwise? You're about to get... Whoa! Cuddle sesh! We just fall into your open arms.
Involuntary cuddle sesh.
Oh dear.
Involuntary corpse cuddle.
Now you're the one with the shovel. Oh dear, let's change topics quickly to get away from these things. I'm going to have another donut. Why don't you like sour cream donuts? They're good.
I think it's just because of the notion that sour cream is not my favorite thing anyway.
But they don't taste like sour cream.
And to put it in something that should be sweet is a little strange.
They're still sweet. Try one. I think you're getting caught up on thinking it like tastes like sour cream. Sour cream is used when they bake them, and that's what makes them all crispy and craggly. They're like old-fashioned donuts. They're not crunchy enough to... I don't think anyone's going to hear you do that.
I was just going to say, here we go.
So it's not like they taste like a baked potato. What were you thinking? It's part of the baking process. They don't slather them with sour cream on the top. I don't know. I like an old-fashioned donut, so maybe it's just me. Some people might not like the crunchy or older type donuts.
My favorite is still probably the kind of general, I guess.
Are you a cakey or a yeasted donut guy?
No, I'm not a cake donut guy. See, that's the thing.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I thought you were the non-yeaster, or maybe that's my sister.
I'm
shot.
more of a.
So the difference is, do you like Krispy Kremes or do you like?
I do. I like the.
Yeah, the yeast donuts. I like both to a certain degree. I mean, sometimes I'm in the mood for one, sometimes in the mood for the other. We're ignoring this quest because this lady's boring. It's not a quest; it's part of the plot, really. But. Anyways.
It's an uninteresting plot.
Yeah, we're saving a reporter from Joker's thugs. Yeah, whatever.
I am running out of time.
Running out of time.
I am going to die!
What does she mean she's running out of time? All the snipers are dead. I wonder what would happen if you just left her. We should have tried that. We could have just left her and been like, and then she just dies mysteriously. She dies of fright.
You should be safe here for now. Stay here.
Hey, don't you sound like
You're
Bruce
welcome,
Wayne?
By the way.
You sound like Bruce Wayne.
For saving your life.
You're Bruce Wayne, aren't you? And then it's revealed. Oh, this is this. There we go. This is this video.
This is the... Merry birthday to Bats. To Bats. She's the March Hare.
No, she's not.
I'm joking. You're saying she's the field mouse?
I'm not going to make any comparisons because I don't think they're fitting.
Let's be honest, she's Tweedledum.
Wow. I don't know. If anything, she looks a little bit like the Queen of Hearts right now with the weird makeup. Now there's a topic.
I love how she's trying to see, like she can like.
Who are you talking to, Batman?
Like she
are
can
your broad
read
shoulders
some
obscuring someone I can't see? Just going, man, this guy's so big, he's talking to someone around him, but I can't see him.
Can I read the lips through your earpiece?
Can I just snuggle in here and hear what you're hearing?
Let me hold you. Another Gold Star reference.
I just want to hold you. We can't abuse that, though. We don't want to put like that in every video.
Can't abuse it.
Can't abuse. You don't want to become obuse. Oh, boy. Well, we're looking at the map again. Why do we always do this? Every time we try to talk about something.
When there's a place she's got to go. The map's the one you need to know. It's the map.
I think, are we going to do the...
You don't even get a Bronze Star for that one.
No.
If you don't know what that one's
from. Right, if you get that reference, get out.
Wow.
Oh,
you don't know. There may be dads. It's not like we want to watch those shows.
Then don't. I maintain if you have kids, what you should just be watching with them is Sesame Street. And I don't mean modern Sesame Street. Go back to like the 60s and watch that Sesame Street. Because that was stuff I wouldn't even be ashamed to watch that now as a single person.
That's true.
Because that stuff was great.
That is true.
Yes. I believe it's unrelated, but I believe it was the Phineas and Ferb writers said something about Phineas and Ferb that I think also applies to Sesame Street. Well, probably not actually. But hear me out. It'll make sense. They said, the guy who made Phineas and Ferb said that he believed Phineas and Ferb was a show for adults that kids could watch too. Because it really kind of is. It's not at all a kids show in the traditional sense. It has definitely, not that when you say it has adult humor, that always sounds like it's risque. But I mean, it has sophisticated humor that only really adults would appreciate.
Right.
And I feel like Sesame Street had that too. Now, of course, Sesame Street was indeed made for kids. That was its whole point. But it was made with the similar spirit of like modern kid shows are just garbage.
Well, that's
like,
true.
I'm not even that old, and I watch them going, golly, I want to die.
I don't know that can even be attributed to an era, though. That has to just be
I think it's an era
one-off.
thing.
Nah, it's not, though, because you like Phineas and Ferb did it in
I suppose
an
more
era that was
recently,
completely terrible.
Well, what about, are there any other old kid shows that aren't so bad? I suppose I'm not.
No, but everybody can agree Caillou is terrible.
Wow.
It is.
Caillou.
He's the most annoying kid ever.
And why is he bald? That's the question I always had.
See, and I didn't love like the Wiggles either, but that like
I never watched the Wiggles. The Wiggles were actually a little bit too late for me as a kid, I think. Either that or my parents loved me enough to never let me watch them.
wow. When they
Getting
got
shot,
into the
getting shot, bad
when
times.
they got into the era of television that was like, hey, this guy's in a silly costume. Isn't that enough to keep you watching? It was a little bit like, no.
Well, only for kids.
Well, again, yeah.
I notice you're eating the whole donut.
I'm trying to finish it for you.
You don't have to.
I'm joking.
I'll gladly finish it. Don't act like I want you to eat my food.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it's great.
That was so believable. Yeah, I can't. Now that I think about it, I suppose I can't think of any other old shows similar to Sesame Street. So maybe it was just that Sesame Street was
That's
great.
what I'm saying. It's kind of a one-off. You just threw her.
Yeah, it was kind of like, that is not an iPhone. That's one of them cheap. That was a knockoff iPhone. She bought that on Alibaba.
I was being culturally insensitive.
That's a website.
Insensitive.
That's the website that sells. Where do you think stuff from Wish comes from? It comes from knockoff manufacturers. And a lot of them are on Alibaba. Not to say that everyone on Alibaba is a knockoff manufacturer.
Make way for...
No. Anyways. Yeah, so there you go. Maybe let's just talk about how creative and brilliant Jim Henson was.
Well, that could be a
There is a documentary.
entire discussion thread.
There's a
all
documentary that I used to have saved on a YouTube playlist, and then it got taken down. And then I found it somewhere else, so I downloaded it just in case it got taken down again. It's called, if it's still out there, it's called The World of Jim Henson. It was, I believe, part of the Great Productions or something like that. It was a series based that would like talk about documentaries on various creators. I think it was called Great Productions or something like that. But it was The World of Jim Henson. And it talked about his career from like the 60s all the way up until he died.
When
and all
did
the
you do that first again?
a TV show that only aired in Washington, D.C. called, I believe it was called Sam and Friends. And it was literally like full-on sock puppets. Like, obviously it was the birth of the Muppet idea, but they were totally the most low-budget puppets. But it was still, I
Which
don't know.
goes to show you, if you have a good idea
Yeah.
and no resources, it'll take you far.
Well, I mean, we did just get off of the other topic of me talking about how I can't get over bad special effects in old movies, but...
Yeah, but see, I feel like it speaks still to what you're saying, which is if you don't try to make it seem like you're doing something more, then if you go, yes, I'm very well aware I'm using sock
Then
puppets.
again, it
but
is
that's-
puppets. I mean, with puppets, there's already a suspension of disbelief.
Well, that's my point.
So, like the fact that they weren't great puppets, I wasn't like, these puppets suck. because they're still puppets. I wasn't expecting lifelike animatronics.
Those puppets don't even look real. The eyes aren't moving.
But yeah, you should definitely watch it because it's so fascinating, and there's a lot of
Everybody
hidden gems.
Everybody knows Big Bird's actually a real bird.
Yes,
It's
he is.
3 times the size of a person.
Oh, they even put in the. Did you hear that conch noise? That was a
Just-
full-on tink.
Get bapped.
That was great. Yeah, you should definitely watch it if it's not been taken down because it shows you a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff that's awesome. They have one segment of they talk about how the puppets are made, and it like goes from Jim making a sketch, then they have the guy make the puppets, and then they even have like riffing based on the. They would give him like different effects and like change the stuff on his eyes because they had like felt stuff back in those days. And so they would like tweak his face in a way, and give him some different hats and wigs and stuff. And Jim would just make stuff up. Like you're watching him, like okay, we put this. He kind of
recreate
He kind
the
of has this
character.
look now.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, maybe he's like this, and then they switch him around. They make him different. I'm like, it's fascinating to watch because it just shows how creative he was as a person. And they have a lot of discussion with people who worked with him, basically, and that's all they say is just like he was always just. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is. Like he was.
Mastermind.
Well, yes, obviously, but I mean, there was always a spark of some kind of unique idea in him.
Yeah.
It's like give him just a little bit, and he'd go off on it, and it's like it's so fascinating when you see people like that. Because then again, that comes to the same thing of what about how does a company survive when its visionary dies?
Ooh, but you can't.
But that's
Are you
difficult.
saying that that's positive for the Muppets because they haven't?
They haven't. Again, I think like Disney, they took a lot longer to go
They
because
did, but now
I think part of the reason
you even
is
have Miss Piggy going, "Nope, I'm not going to do
well,
it."
yeah, Frank Oz has sadly said that he doesn't agree with the stuff they're doing now, and so has left. I don't know if left. I don't know if he ever. Well, I think he was working. I think he was an employee for a while.
It was a fairly bold statement. It was not like
Yeah. Well, but I think part of it is because it passed to his son. Brian, I believe, is Brian Henson is the one who followed up Jim in a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the Muppets.
Jim, don't.
Well, I suppose that's not true. I was going to say a lot of the Muppets' best stuff was with Brian, and that's not strictly true because I think, Jim died I think in the early '90s. But like things like Muppet Christmas Carol, and I think even Muppet Treasure Island, and those movies were
those
made
ones were
after
great.
Jim, and those are some of my favorite films. I guess I can't say that they're the best. Some people might be like, oh, a little more old school with the original Muppet movie and whatnot.
Well, but what happened then? That's the.
I don't know. I don't know if Brian stepped away or if there was a change of some other kind. I don't know.
Well, but I go. See, this is where the thin line of doing the same old versus trying a new visionary thing. Because I go, you can't fault Brian if he's literally just trying new things.
Yeah, well,
if he's the head of the company.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's. I don't know.
Because you're
I think
kind
what
of
we're
damned
both-
if you do, damned if you
I
don't.
think what we're both thinking of is the Muppet movie remake, not remake, but like whatever it was called, the Muppet movie. No, it was called The Muppets.
Yeah.
The movie that came out, I think, in like 2011. We saw it in theaters as a family, and it just wasn't very good. Because it's gonna. I mean, I know other people have done it, but Jim Henson's Kermit is so hard to follow.
Yes.
And of course, I know that in things like Muppet Christmas Carol and the other one I mentioned, Treasure Island,
Yes.
it wasn't him, and it's still great. But whoever they've got to do it now, I don't like much. And Batman's passing out because he just injected himself with a random drug he found. This is a PSA, kids.
That sounds like.
Don't take random drugs just because they're given to you.
Bring back the DARE program.
Especially not intravenous ones, never.
Oh, I remember this part.
Yeah.
And we actually made the comment that this felt very Bioshock.
Yes, but was it only the ears? I think
No,
it's only
it's
the
not,
ears.
though. It's the,
well,
it's the
I
whole
suppose,
framing of the shot.
yeah, this scene with the lights and everything. I suppose you're right about that.
I mean, even the fact that it's first person then makes it a little more.
Well, yeah, that's true, I suppose. But I do think the light shining in such a way, it's definitely Bioshocky.
I'm sad that this.
No into Bioshocky.
The side quest didn't last longer.
Yeah, it's literally just we're gonna finish it in about 10 minutes, and we fail at it several times too. It's then again, how many villains have they already crammed into this? I mean, they couldn't give him much more screen time because there wasn't much more to go around.
Well, it was a fairly
There's a lot of villains in this. I don't mean to say crammed in a
Large
negative sense.
cast.
There's it's not like they did it poorly, but not everyone could get equal screen time, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't love the original Alice in Wonderland. I read it a little while back because I figured I should.
It's real weird.
It's weirder than even the animations
for sure.
were. But not in as weird a way. Like, the Disney one is fairly faithful in its overarching structure, but it doesn't have the same... It obviously cut some stuff out. There was a weird... Do you help me out? My sisters would know this because we watched it as a... I don't know if... Maybe it was a collective fever dream. Because I have no clue what this movie was. But before...
This was the fever dream right here.
This is us
He's remembering it.
This is us having the fever dream. Before the Tim Burton... Was it Tim Burton who did the more recent ones?
Yep.
Before the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movies, which are recent, there was another live-action Alice in Wonderland that was weird.
It's not a fever dream. It's
Do you remember this?
It's terrible.
It's weird.
It's real terrible.
But it's like the book...
It's on Disney... It's either on Disney Plus or Amazon.
Oh, no.
It's really bad.
Well, it probably was Disney. I don't know if they owned it at the time. But it's whack. But that movie felt genuinely like a fever dream.
Yes.
Like, it was whack. And the book doesn't feel as much like that. The book
felt
just...
a little bit like this.
The book... No.
No, I'm saying the movie. The live
the
action.
book feels a little more... It's weird in more like... In not... Like, the live action one we're talking about was, like, unsettlingly weird. You're like, I actually... It's almost like am I having an acid flashback? What's going on here? I
thought you were going to say acid reflux.
I almost did because but it's like, whereas the book is mostly just like, it's almost,
what did you eat? Some chicken, some roast beef, a pizza.
The book feels, I suppose, in a way, the way dreams sort of feel. Like, have you ever written down a dream after you've had it? And then you read it again and you're like...
It's fantastic.
Yeah, but it's almost like it feels super disconnected. Whoop, we had a weird freeze there. I hope that doesn't show up in the editing. But it's like, if you've ever written down a dream you've had and then read it back, you're like, we did this, and then I went through a door, and then I was here. It's like the one Mike Birbiglia skit where it's like, I should go to the store, cut to the store, pizza montage. It's like, dreams kind of are disconnected like that, where it's like, I have no clue how I got here.
Well, I love the jumping, well, or at least if you'll allow me the tangent, the Inception concept where they're in like in the second stage and he's trying to remember the number and it's like, I can't get there.
Well, because that's, and so I feel like the book's a little more like that, where it's not weird in the hallucinogenic sense, like the weird live action one. It's more like weird in the sense of a weird dream.
Right.
Where you're like, we did this, and then I was at a Walmart, but I was also under the ocean at the same time, and it's like, in dreams, you don't question those things. It's like, yeah, I'm just at a Walmart under the ocean. And then when you read it back, you're like, what was I doing? It's a little like that, where it's just very disconnected. But because it's like that, I don't know. I didn't follow it very well. He's creepy. I don't know. Have you read the book, or are you...
I have. It's been a while. I remember reading it in grade school, and it was not...
Really? See, I never read... I got out of reading just about everything in grade school, and I have no clue why.
I don't know why.
I think it's because I had an international education. I talked to my sister about this because my sister.
I don't think that bodes well for international education.
I don't know. Let me explain. Because my sister is actually a teacher, and she, like, every time I mention a book, or if she mentions a book that I haven't read, she'd be like, "Wait, but that's part of like established curriculum. You have to have read that." The problem is, I went to 2 different international schools because we moved.
I don't know that Alice in Wonderland was.
I don't know that would be, because I'm not sure it's... I don't know. Then again, she might know. I'll ask her. But it was like, I went to 2 different schools that I swear had like the inverse of each other's curriculum, because it just so happened that I was like in my early high school, they were always like, oh, you're going to be reading these books like as part of the curriculum when you move up to these grades. And then we switched schools when I was in the middle of high school. And then at my other school, they were like, okay, so you should have read these books as part of the curriculum in this grade. And I was like, I crossed over at the perfect period where I missed all of them.
She's like, yeah, I read that.
And I'm just like, I didn't read
Well,
any
you of all
these.
people are
I was
fairly
also-
good at MSU.
Excuse me?
Just the whole making stuff up when you
Oh.
have to, just on the fly going.
I've never heard that. Oh, well,
Sure,
Well,
it's-
Mrs. Porterfield, if you're listening, I never read 1984. I know you
Which
gave
is
me.
really a shame.
I know you gave me an A for that book report. I'm sorry I deceived you. I never read that book, and I still got an A. So I suppose you're right about that. That I can flutter my old tat, as it were.
What?
It's a Britishism that I'm probably misusing.
You can flutter your own tat?
I-
All I know is that you done Orwell dirty.
I never. It was not the
That's
fault
a-
of the book. The problem was when I was in high school, I also didn't like reading. I did not get into reading until I was almost out of high school.
I'd be curious about whether that's a commonality, because I
don't think the education system does a good job with teaching people to read.
It does not at all.
Because as a kid, I was like, oh, I don't like the books they make me read for school, so clearly I don't like reading.
Well,
Because
to be fair, you jump from Dr. Seuss and all of those fun books to even when I was younger and I read like mini chapter books like the Mars Diaries and some of those other ones.
those are not mini books.
Well, okay, I maybe read the junior versions or whatever, but all I'm saying is that I was reading through those, and then you jump to like Britlit and some of those others that are so incredibly dry because the stuff they require you to read isn't even that prolific.
Yeah.
It's like they try to pull out these authors and things that aren't even that famous, and you're going, why are we studying this?
Yeah, I suppose to a degree, I think the problem is force.
Yes.
It's the whole thing of
100%.
It's the whole joke nowadays where it's like, if I was about to clean my room and my mom told me to, I would be like, oh, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, because now I'm not getting credit for that. Actually,
Yeah, now I'm not getting
wanting
credit
to
for like doing it on my own. I'm doing it because I had to, and that, I don't know. But I feel like to win back Mrs. Porterfield, my 11th and 12th grade English teacher, to give her some credit, it was part of that curriculum that did get me into reading because there was a little more freedom. Where it was like, okay, we're going to have to do book reports, but we have this big list, and you can choose these books.
Yeah.
So I was at least able to be like, well, I have to read, and at the time I was like, I don't want to, but I suppose I have to. And so I might as well pick something that interests me.
Right.
And then, because I was able to do that with the freedom, and it wasn't read this or fail, I actually ended up enjoying them. Like, one of my favorite books now is Dracula, which I read as part of that because it was on the list, and I was like, I never read that. Give it a try, and it's great. So that's...
That one I have not read.
Oh, you should. It's definitely one of my favorite books. It's in the lofty top number 5 on my Goodreads. The 5 stars.
Wow, that is quite lofty. What is the number one spot?
No, it's not number 5 as in 5 stars. I don't have.
Okay.
It's not like top 5. But then again, in my top 5 on Goodreads, you got me confused. In my like 5-star catalog on Goodreads, there's only
There's
like
only,
maybe
like,
10
maybe
books.
3, yeah.
No, it's more than that, but like maybe only 10. So yeah, it's definitely, I liked it a lot. So there you go. I think it's just, you got to give people a little more freedom in education. I think that's true just in every sense. You know,
Well,
when you force kids to do stuff, they're not going to want to do it.
I believe Adam Savage actually made that comment on a commentary level with his podcast, and that he was talking about the education
So
system.
I got you to listen to that, did I?
It's a good podcast.
There
But
you go. It is
he was
good.
talking about the education
Still
system
Untitled,
at one
by
point,
the way.
and he
Hang on, to a side. It's called Still Untitled. It's still going. It's been going on for like 7 years. You should definitely watch it.
well,
Anyways.
and it's very much divergent. I mean, you can't. There's not really a particular thread of like this is what we're talking about today, and so
they try to do that more
it's
so
similar-
than we do.
Well,
they
that's
succeed
probably
more
true.
than we do.
well,
What
we could take some notes.
What
as
we
we're
really
like-
need to do is get Adam Savage on this.
That would be fantastic.
Then we'd blow up. I would love to meet him.
Adam Savage, if you're listening, we would.
I am a
probably
huge
pass
fan.
out.
Mythbusters was a huge part of my childhood. I pursued the degree I did because of Mythbusters. So
Well, yeah, quite
if you come onto the
inspirational for you.
If you come onto the show, I will, I don't know, pass out or something.
Yeah,
I've seen him.
probably, There'd
Never
be so
met him.
much fanfare for you. That would just
I have never met him, but I did see him live at a show once, and it was really quite.
I recall that
It was a little.
the retelling was that you were.
What's the
you were
word?
Starstruck.
A little bit, but what's the word when it's surreal?
Yeah.
It's like I was like, I'm 50 feet away. That's not just a screen. That's actually him. It was weird. But anyways,
he was talking about the education system.
That's how we boost our views, is to get Adam on here.
That would be fantastic. I would love to do that. Simply because I respect him as an intellectual, not even as
it's not just that I respect Mythbusters. I actually think he's got a lot of, I don't know. Adam's a great dude. I don't know how
He's got some good.
I doubt he'll ever hear this, but if you do, the podcast is great. Tested is his YouTube channel that he now has.
Yeah.
Which is what he's basically been doing since Mythbusters ended. It's another thing you should check out. He's just a cool dude.
On that note, because I value his opinion, he talked about the fact that the biggest problem with our education system is that we have made it about tests and benchmarks.
That's not even his critique. That's literally anyone who's got some sense.
Well, that's true, but I
can see
not a lot of people have a good sense of what should be done about it. And basically, what he said is you should return to. It's kind of he echoed what we've said, which is the early years of like Greek. Academia was basically, if you want to learn this, you come down and you learn it. Like, there's no benchmark on you have to be 12 years old and learning this or whatever else.
They did actually have, the Greeks did have a sort of curriculum.
Well, sure, but it was
started with. But
that's a progression though.
Yeah,
that's not a required.
It's also worth noting it was very well rounded. It included music and
theology
and grammar. It was like you balanced everything. So it's like you had your grammar and your math and the quote. You can't see my air quotes, but the traditionally boring topics in
big
school.
Ones.
I'm gonna have to flap them so hard you can hear them on the mic. But they like you'd balance your more quote boring stuff with things like music, and I think even there was some other varieties of art. There were other varieties of art, so it's like it was very well balanced, and we don't get a lot of that.
Well, I think that there in the Victorian era, you see a similar
there wasn't much
emphasis.
There wasn't much schooling in the Victorian era.
Well, my point is that when we talk about like a Renaissance man or whatever, it's people that
was all self-driven.
Well-rounded.
Yeah, and it was self-driven.
Well, but that we got to get back to that because again, I think even for the Greco-Roman world, it was all progressive. It was not a matter of benchmark of like, oh, you're this age.
Well, I think
the
greatest problem we ever had was the standardization of the college degree becoming the minimum entry point where you go.
Well, that was a recent phenomenon.
Not that recent. Since like the 70s, arguably it began in the post World War II. And
you think so? I think it became more acute
I forget,
maybe late 90s.
I think it became more acute. I forget what I watched. It was a YouTube video.
Like the information age really is what drove that.
What I saw, it was a video that did a good job of explaining it. Sadly, I can't remember where. But it said, basically, a lot of guys who came home from the war were given basically free college education because they were like 18. They come back from the war, they're 24, having seen the horrors of war. The government was basically like, we're going to give them free rides to these places so they can actually get, lives, because they've got to be able to reintegrate into society. And so they were the kind of guys who went to college, they got degrees, they then started businesses and did all these things. And then it became, that sort of planted the seed of this idea that to be successful, you have to go to college.
It was conflation. They conflated.
It got worse since then but it was like those guys went to college and that's what turned their lives around. And then so it was like it became a generational push.
Right.
Where every generation then pushed the next to go to college.
Right. Not conflative. It became like people thought correlative meant causational, and it's not.
Yeah, and then it became a matter of now it wasn't. If you want to really be settled for life, you go to college because you'd be basically set.
Yeah.
Like if you went to college in the 40s, it's like you work almost anywhere.
Right.
Whereas then in sort of the 60s and 70s, it became, if you don't go to college, you can still make a living, but you'll never quite reach the same level as these other guys. And then by like the 90s and the early 2000s, it was you can't hardly get a job if you don't go to college.
Well, now it's become even worse. Where I think
now it's like now it's even more where it's okay. If you get a college degree, you'll be able to get some jobs. But if you really want a great job, you might need to get a further like a postgraduate degree.
Right.
And all it does is it basically feeds people. Now you got people still in school until they're 40.
Right.
And it's like, now you go, what? To me, I follow Mike Rowe.
Yes.
When he talks about the only time you should go to college is if you know what
Required
you want
for
to
your-
do.
Yeah, exactly.
If you know, I want to be a lawyer, and you're like, and you know that, because some people know that early on.
Well, there's certain jobs you can't just walk into.
Yeah,
like
it's
a
like
doctor
if you
or
go, I really am interested in this, and I want to be a lawyer, then you're going to
Right.
saddle yourself with a lot of debt, and you've got to be willing to accept that.
Right.
But if you have that drive, then you'll know this is what I'm going to do, and it makes that worth it, because you're not going to get that job without that degree.
Right.
But like the worst thing you can do as a kid is to not know what you want to do and go to college. Because what are you going to do? You're going to do what everyone does. You're going to study communications or business or something that...
Ooh.
Sorry to my sister with a communications degree. But I think even she'd agree that most of the stuff she's learned from
not applicable,
has been from experience, not school.
Yeah.
Or it's like you, and then what? You've saddled yourself with $40,000 worth of debt and with a degree that isn't going to get you a job to pay it off.
Yeah.
And that's the
I
challenge.
I have a friend who's making ridiculous money. Well, I wouldn't say ridiculous, but definitely comparative to people that do have, more career-driven, like college degree type careers, and yet she started as a apprentice, welder apprentice, and is now making ridiculous money.
There's a part of me that I'm like, maybe I should have done that. I only say that because I've just come out of the grind, as it were. But there's a degree to which it's like, if you think, because that's where if you like to make stuff, for example, you go, I don't really know what I want to do, but I like to make things. Instead of going to college and saying, I'm gonna, and again, I don't think we're old enough to be giving solid life advice.
We're also not ragging on college, because I'm finishing my master's
we've
degree
both
right now.
been to college, but I go, if you're like, I enjoy, making stuff. It's like, I like, and that can be any variety. It's like, I enjoy making stuff out of wood or out of metal. Go to a trade school, spend $5,000. A high school student could pay for that,
right?
With obviously hard work and savings, and then those jobs you're not going to make big, huge money, but you'll make a lot more than you'd think.
Yeah.
Like, the part of the reason is I go as someone with a STEM degree, and when I look at job applications, it's like, apprentice, like entry level engineering type jobs, you're going to make this much a year. And then you look over at like welding, apprentice, it's still called an apprentice. Yeah. It's like apprentice welder, you make almost the same money. Maybe not as an apprentice, but like if you have a certificate from a trade school,
right,
you can make almost the same money. Now as an engineer, you have higher ceiling,
right,
where you'll move up.
The headroom is more, yeah.
You could move up to be making a lot more, but but if you didn't go to college, spent maybe $5,000 on your education, and can make that much money right away,
right,
it's like you can absolutely build a very easy, I don't want to say easy, but like a very solid life out of that,
right.
And so if you don't know what you want to do for college, not to say you just, then don't do it at all. Give it some thought, but I think...
Don't just run to college is the answer, is another word.
Because I think that's the only way we're going to undo the monopolization, is just for people to go, you know what, I'm going to go where the jobs are.
Yeah.
And not always are they degreed. Sometimes you go, we apprentice carpenter, apprentice...
Well, I think the blue-collar appreciation and value is coming back in our
a little bit, but I think
culture.
it's just at the cusp.
Yes.
Because I think just now people are starting to get fed up with the academic... I hate the term elitism.
Oh, that's an absolutely...
Yes, but it's such a loaded term these days.
No.
Not everyone uses it appropriately.
That's true.
But this, I think, is the one instance in which it is used appropriately, where it's very much like this idea that academics have worth because they have degrees, and it's like, you can be an idiot with any number of certificates.
Well, the same thing's true in martial arts. When people say, I have a black belt, it's like, well, that doesn't mean jack if you can't actually fight.
Yeah. Well, we have been doing this fight for long enough that I haven't...
This took a lot longer than I remember.
We failed at this more than I remember. I think it's when you're probably talking about something else equally deep and conceptual, and it got us off. Kind of like we're doing now, but at least now we don't have the excuse of sucking so much. What's y'all's favorite Mountain Dew? Because you don't like red.
I don't like red.
I
It's
don't know
not.
why.
Well, it's not that I don't like it. It's not as good.
I like most of the Mountain Dews. I'm not a fan of whatever the white one's called.
I have never had whiteout.
Is that what it's called?
Yep.
I don't remember. Voltage
had
is
it.
good.
What
The
does whiteout
orange.
taste like? Is it like a coconutty type?
I don't even remember. I just remember trying it and being like, I don't like this. I don't mind Code Red or Voltage, which is the blue one. I've had the orange one, which is weird.
The orange one's trash. It tastes like Fanta, glorified Fanta.
Well, Fanta's not bad.
I'm not a fan of Fanta either, so there you go.
Well, there you go. That's your problem. Is you just don't have taste. I don't know how long this fight goes for in terms of how long we played through. Was this all we did in that episode? I feel like we've been talking about college forever. That's because that's just everything around college feels like forever.
This clock is actually representative of college. It goes on forever.
Goes round and round and you never get anywhere. Oh, we're sounding terrible. I don't know. Yeah. So Adam Savage, Mike Rowe, smart guys. You should listen to them.
Yes. And that's coming from, I mean, Adam Savage
And I don't
is
believe
obviously
either-
speaking out of a
I
place
don't
of
actually-
education. So it's
He's
like,
not. No.
Yes.
He actually talks a lot about how he went to college for 6 months and dropped out.
He may have said that in the thing. I forgot that.
And not,
I
and
think
of
I
course,
just assumed,
he also
which again
doesn't.
is fair.
Well, he's actually quite a gifted speaker. As I mean, I remember showing my dad the podcast somewhat recently, and he was sort of surprised because on MythBusters, he's the goofball.
Yeah.
He comes across as sort of a big doofus, which is part of his. That's an act. He does that on purpose for the entertainment.
Sure.
But he's actually he's a pretty sharp tack as a guy.
Yeah.
And so, but he does talk about like, he doesn't endorse like, look at me, I didn't go to college and I turned out fine. But he did, you can, it's going to be harder potentially. There's going to definitely be some limitations, but you don't have to go to college to have, a fulfilling life. I don't know if Mike Rowe went to college or not. I actually have no clue about that, but he might have. So I can't comment.
Know.
But he's still a champion of trade schools and blue collar work because we need that stuff.
There is a audio podcast.
I want my garbage taken away, and if the garbage man needs to get a decent pay, the garbage
They need to get.
Yeah, they need to get paid for that because I like that service.
Yeah.
So if people going, oh, you don't want to end up like the garbage man, I'm like, well, the garbage man, we need those people. We can't talk. It's like even to a degree. And I'm not super in favor of like the raising the minimum wage thing because I think government. Anytime you ask the government to do something, this is the clue. We're gonna get the clue to the riddle.
I was gonna say
This is one of the worst riddles.
Micro also has a podcast. It's an audio podcast.
He does. I forgot.
Called.
I forget the name of it too.
Oh, it's basically like stories that he sets up that are really kind of interesting and
I don't know which came first. There's a book of it too. I don't know if it's a reading of the book or if the book was inspired by the show. I forget what it's called now. Look it up. You've got a phone. I think it's called something. I think I feel like it's something about that or how about that or
and
that's that or
and that was the. Cat in the head. That was
That's
bad.
the way the cookie crumbles. I think it's something like it's one of those phrases like that was that or how about that or something like that. I forget.
The way I heard it. That's the way I heard it.
Never mind. I was wrong. Yeah, check them out. Podcasts are great. I don't listen to enough of them.
If you are itching or starving for
If you're itching, I'd recommend some powder.
if you are itching or starving for Ivy League education, podcast is a great way to go.
I'm not sure that that's equivalent to Ivy League
It's
education.
hardly equivalent. I'm just saying, like, you can basically sit in on lectures.
I found that the Oxford, I believe it's Oxford, one of the British colleges of note, has an entire podcast series of various topics.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's helpful if you're just doing it simply for your own self-benefit.
I believe that MIT publishes a lot of their recorded lectures, and those are actually recorded lectures. As I attest, hand to the Bible, that I passed some of my classes because those were available to me.
Really?
Yeah, there's definitely, when you get into it's MIT, so they're pretty much all technical related.
Right.
I forget what it's called. I think it's called MIT Open Coursework or something like that.
Huh.
I'm sure if you look up MIT free courses, you'll find them. But there are a lot of them. You'd be surprised. So
I mean, do they have like a base knowledge that you would probably have to have in order to even?
they're
grapple
still
with
college level courses. So
Well,
if
of
you've never
course,
taken any of the stuff, you might.
If
be
you
at
don't
a
know where the
loss.
space bar is, you've got some problems.
Well, then you're not going to reach them at all.
You're gonna have a bad time.
So yeah, I don't know. As much as I'm a little bit anti-internet these days, as I get older. Ooh, Deadshot victim.
You
Deadshot.
unpack that because that's an interesting.
More I'd say
Is
I'm a little bit more anti-social media because I think social media is the opposite of what the rest of these things are. Is
Well,
that
what
they
it
spread
suggests-
disinformation rather than information.
Well, that's true.
But I think that's the one thing that makes me go, you know what, the internet is ultimately a force for good as long as we can learn how to freaking cope with it as a society. Is that you go, the fact that you could take MIT level courses, I mean, not take them. You're not getting you're not doing the same practice work, and you're not getting the
Credit.
the out of class education.
Right.
But the fact that that stuff's available, it's tremendous. I mean, I believe this is sort of unrelated. I mean, well, it's related, but it's in a different direction. I believe it was in around I don't know when, post World War II, during the Cold War. The U.S. government developed a test. It wasn't a test. They put together this sort of experiment in which two people with nothing but access, I think nothing but college, not even college, I think it was just high school degrees, and access to a public library, they tasked them with creating an atomic bomb.
Huh.
And they succeeded, using only those resources. I don't know how long it took them, but it's like using those resources, they were able to figure out enough to make a functioning... Because I think they were concerned about terrorism and all the things at the time. But they
So they were
realized it's like,
proving
this
that it
is
was
trying to
possible?
prove
I mean,
that,
was
yeah,
it-
it's like with just... And there's numerous stories if you ever look up things like... I'm not sure where we're going. We're going back to the museum for some reason.
It's like the anarchist cookbook.
Well, that's okay. I was going to go.
I
There's
was joking.
There's a story I believe of. There's numerous stories. One of them I think was like a woman who passed the bar exam using only textbooks from her local library, so that she could prove her brother's innocence in a wrongful murder trial.
Right.
And it's like and that's one of the hardest tests in terms of professional grading. Of like, it's one of the most difficult. It's like right up there with medical school, where it's like to pass the bar exam is a difficult thing for college students to do. And so the fact that she studied using only public library resources, and then I think she even went on to win the case, her brother's case, which was nuts. It's like that stuff. That's kind of
Did
nuts.
she continue being a lawyer after
I
that, or-
don't actually know. I should point out that I did not fact check the story ruthlessly, so there could be, I don't know if I'm strictly accurate, but I think there was another one where there was a man, like an African man who lived close enough to the city to be able to reach a public library, and built and engineered like windmills for his village.
Isn't that a movie?
It could be now, but it's like a story. It's like he basically, using the stuff he learned in these textbooks, was able to build, I think it was windmills or some kind of something to supply power and water to his village. And I'm just like, that's the stuff that is important. And that's why I believe the internet can help incredibly with that dissemination of knowledge.
Yes.
But the problem is, so often it's the dissemination of misinformation that really is what it achieves.
Well, I think that unfortunately that is becoming more and more. That virus is spreading to other news outlets, even in.
I don't think it's spread to those
TV.
news outlets. I think those news outlets are the source.
Well, that may be true.
It's the alpaca that gave us AIDS.
Now, okay. Now, I feel like one of the purest.
You gotta give me credit for that. That was a good one. I believe it was an alpaca, wasn't it?
I don't have any clue.
I believe it was discovered that the virus that causes AIDS exists only naturally occurring in. It was some South American animal. I think it was like llamas or alpacas, and it's like, and it only
was a monkey.
Maybe it might have been monkeys. But the point is, it didn't exist in humans until after Westerners found said animals, and it suggests some very negative things.
Found, if you know what I mean, the biblical reference for known.
So the point is, humans suck. Because we can all blame that guy.
No, I was gonna say I think you would like to think that the written news outlet would be above that, but really even that falls into the same
Yeah, and that's why I don't
category.
know. It's an interesting. That's why I would have to call myself libertarian more than conservative these days. Is because I do agree with I'm all in favor of public libraries and things like that. I just don't like public schools. I don't want the government involved.
Well, anytime you try to standardize something,
Yeah.
it goes against, again, what we were talking about before, which is that there are going to be some people that excel and other people that take longer.
Well,
that
I
doesn't
believe
mean
it
you're not
was-
excelling. It's just that
It was either Seneca or Cicero or one of the great Roman philosophers that said, men are born with different capabilities. To make them equal, they must not be free, and to make them free, they must not be equal.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, it might be slightly different wording, but it's basically saying people have their own strengths, and you can't standardize. It's the whole Einstein thing of if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's stupid. Because you're going, people have different abilities, and if you try to make them equal, they're not going to be free. Because you're going to be forcing some people into restraint and pushing others beyond their limits. And
It's a bit like, what's that show? Not Lincoln, but
Lincoln, the movie Lincoln,
it's not, but it's in the same kind of.
The Patriot.
No, it's a BBC docu-series. It's the one with
You're stepping on that guy's
used
face.
to consistently watch.
I used to consistently watch a BBC series about who?
About John Adams. There we go.
Oh, that's not it's HBO, not BBC.
Oh, I thought it was BBC. Anyway,
Great
there's
series. You should watch it,
there's
absolutely.
There's a point in which I can't remember who makes the statement.
It's probably John Adams.
No, it wasn't. It was the other. It was
Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton. They all appear.
Who's the? I'm trying to remember the actor because that's all I can.
Well, do
have
you know who he played?
I have not religiously watched the show.
Oh, you should. You should. It's a tremendous show. Not only, I mean, obviously.
Oh, it's Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. That is Lincoln.
Is
He's
it
not
Lincoln?
in. He's not in John Adams. He plays.
Okay, then
he
I'm
plays
thinking
in,
of Lincoln then.
Yeah.
Where
He plays
Tommy Lee
Thaddeus
Jones'
Stevens.
character says basically, do I think all men are created equal? I
that
think
is
all
the
men,
best scene in that
yes,
movie.
because he goes basically all men have
It
the
is the
potential
best
to be
roast.
equal, but I don't think that.
Well, it's the best roast in my opinion in most of cinema.
Well, I think
Because they're trying to
it's applicable to what you're saying, which is basically you can't dictate that everyone be equal based on.
Well, that's not exactly
It's equal
his
opportunity,
point.
not equal
Yes.
actual
It's
like.
not exactly his point in that was really just to roast the dude who was.
Well, that's true, but I'm saying the underpinning of that was it's not sameness, it's equality.
It's not all men are equal, but all men deserve equal treatment before the law.
Correct.
We're going, and that's the point he makes. Is the guy who's questioning him? He turns it on him as like, how can I claim that all men are equal when you're here being an imbecile? He says it in much better words.
You should watch.
You should absolutely watch that, even if you don't watch the movie. We should watch that scene because it's just so brilliant.
You could probably even link the.
I might, in fact, because it is just such a great scene and such like a wicked burn. Because
To be honest,
but he says, and then he concludes by saying, even stupid, worthless you ought to be treated equally before the law, and it's like, it's just I don't know. I love a good. There's something about a really. We don't get them much these days, but a really. People need to be able to insult.
Well-deserved
People need to be
roast.
able to be insult without just resorting to crassness. Because
Well-
there's no art in a crass, in just being crass. If you can insult someone, in that kind of way where it's wit and it's
more than wit. You actually are winning
it's
the debate.
biting criticism.
Yes, that's
and
exactly.
true criticism. It's like it's not even I'm going to say something rude, just because. It's like I'm gonna. It's the whole
Obliterate your
yeah,
argument.
It's literally the meme nowadays of I'm gonna end this man's whole career. It's like that. We need more of that these days because too often it just resorts to name calling and petty crassness.
I feel like particularly in the realm of politics that needs to return.
Oh, I believe
In politics.
in watching that movie, I want Congress to look like this, where it's just shouting and harsh, vile criticism that would burn even the most well-spoken modern man to his knees.
Well, that's my point. You'd have to have a steeliness of heart.
Oh, you
at
could,
that point
yeah,
that you
like
just-
because then all politicians would have to be those people, and nowadays politicians are some of the weakest human beings there are.
That is true. Jellyfish that just move around with the breeze.
Yeah, back in that day, it's like you had to have a spine of frickin' iron to even be in that room, much less to excel.
Brass the size of, I don't know,
Great balls of fire.
to see. We didn't come all the way to Congress to see the.
You keep trying to make that reference, and that's no.
That's a very niche reference.
Well, I think you deserve more than a gold star if you reference that, especially because we've never completed the quote. It's great though. Anyways, I have no clue how much more of this episode there is either.
I feel like we're in this
This
room
is the-
for quite some time.
This is the one problem of the non-live playthrough, is that the pontification gets even more intense. Because at least when we're playing the game sometimes forces us to get to the point. Whereas now we've got no point to get to. We can just be like, oh, let's just talk about anything. I don't know. I don't feel like we get to do that much. This is our vacation. Screw you.
Wow.
This is our chance. This is our chance to pontificate all we want.
Into oblivion.
Yeah, there you go. Pontificate's a fun word.
Yes, it is.
I don't know why.
Francisco.
I feel like it's perfect when you can also easily make the jump to pontificate. Sometimes pontification turns into pontification.
I was about to say, it's amazing how oftentimes the two traits coincide.
Yeah. Oh, we're not doing well in this episode, it would appear. Not that we've been paying much attention to it either. Oi.
So, did you hear that our good friend Pete is about to have one of those big old spectacles?
Good friend Pete. Are you making a reference no one but us is going to understand?
Yeah.
Why are you bringing that up now? Now everyone's going to be confused. Why?
His big old. Well, our friend just recently found out he had his retina detached, which is very sad. So,
Ouch. So
he's
he's got a
gonna-
monocle?
well, he's going to have to get surgery, but then he's going to come out with big old Coke bottle lenses like that. I'm fairly confident they're using the back sides of glass bottles, and they're just going to put them in his eyes.
Okay. That sounds deeply unfortunate.
I'm joking.
And again, I question why you brought this up to a bunch of people who aren't going to know what that means.
Well, I don't
Just to
know
prove
what
that we
the
do
actual-
have lives outside of this.
Well, that is true.
This couch is not our only existence.
Like, what was that show? Was the Big Blue Couch? Is that what it's called?
The Bear and the Big Blue
no,
Couch?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. But it was in the same era of those shows.
I do not recall any couch-related TV.
On the
I'm just going to call it The Bear and the Big Blue Couch.
Bear and the Big Blue Couch.
Oy.
No, I actually. What is the story behind Penguin's monocle?
We already talked about it. It's a
Did we?
glass bottle.
Yeah, well, I gather that Copernicus.
I believe the story is that it was a result of a bar fight. I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was early in his mob bossery when he owned. I think it might actually be the bar that's attached to this.
Huh.
Someone took a swipe at him with a bottle and it got wedged in his eye, and I think it doesn't quite make sense because they make the claim that's like, oh, they couldn't remove it because it would damage his brain or something. It's like surely that's a good reason to remove it, but evidently they couldn't, and so it's stuck in his eye,
Well, there you
which is
go.
pretty horrifying when you think about it.
I don't know how that adds to Penguin's character.
The monocle, other than just making it a reason for him to have a monocle. Oh yeah, it's these brothers.
We thought, and you briefly expounded on their
I think
story,
we actually
'cause
even
we
look
don't-
at it because you did because the first time we were in this room, I tried to solve this riddle, but I hadn't unlocked the Riddler side quests yet. So I just ended up looking at that poster for an inordinate amount of time.
Well, we spent some time talking about it, but unpack it again for me.
I think
'cause
we
it's
actually.
been-
Well, hang on, because I do believe I even look at it in the whatchamacallit. Because the whole point is when you unlock that riddle, you reveal a bit of their backstory. It's like the character bios. I think I'm going to get to it here. But if I remember correctly, it takes me a while to find where it is. Essentially what happened is they were conjoined twins at birth. Because of birth complications, they ended up killing the mom in birth because they were conjoined at the shoulder, which I can, as you could probably imagine, would be a very negative thing for the mother to endure. And then the father basically couldn't bear to look at them because it always reminded him of his wife, and so he basically gave them up to adoption, and they ended up in like the circus or something. And then eventually they became a sort of mercenary duo. I'm going to explain all of this, and then it's going to be on screen, and we're just going to have nothing to say. I was hoping I'd at least find where it's at before.
Well, I think you're trying to look for the story right now.
I am, but I don't know that here it is, yeah. Why am I... Oh, that's because I remember we haven't unlocked the first one, which reveals more of their actual childhood. But eventually they got separated. They got surgery to remove themselves from each other's shoulders, and now they're independent thugs that work for, as we've seen, one of them works for Penguin, one of them works for Joker. And they even have a bit of a resolution later on in the plot of this game. I'm curious.
Did you say that originally? I don't remember.
I'm going to attempt my Cyrillic. His name. It's Mopot, and Sier. The P is an R, and I think that weird thing is a P. So Sierp. Oh, I could be wrong. I am not very good with my Russian alphabet. The C is an S. The E is a sort of Y, sort of like a long E. The P is an R. I think that thing on the end is a P. Jimmy's name is Sierp. And I believe Mopot. Mopot. Look it up. Now I'm curious. I need to challenge myself. Russian is another one of those languages that I thought I would try to learn and then realized I did not have the capacity at the time.
Why is that?
Just because when you have to start literally from scratch with a language where you don't even know the alphabet, it's very difficult. Look up the Abramovich twins and see what their names are. Because, yeah, like, at least with a language like Spanish or something, it's the alphabet's the same. Because, like, I do remember I did quite a bit
Marina?
What?
And Roman.
That's not what either of those words said. So...
Wait.
What were their birth names in Russian?
Wait. This is...
These actual people? Did you just accidentally look up real people?
Apparently so.
There's actually the Abramovich brothers? That's interesting.
It's just now a whole nother...
Look up Abramovich brothers Arkham City. Not just random... I don't want to learn about some random Russian mobsters.
They were conjoined twins and then they...
It's a real story. They're real people. I have no clue how long this video is. I don't remember what we achieved. Man, it's hot in here. Is that just me? Any concluding thoughts? Oh, that is how we ended. The video's over with a staring image of the All-Father himself. I believe that's why we ended it there on purpose. I knew we had to be getting close. Well, there we go. I don't know. I'll cut.